Yes, it's the Tuesday ticket. Welcome aboard the Boise bus. No intro, no music, copyright. Naughty people are trying to get the better of us, so rather I'll just wait until the outcomes of a lot of appeals that we've made. And in the meantime, we'll just go straight into it, Jonathan. It's a wee bit strange like the
I
but
know.
we're there, mate. We're there, mate. We're straight in at the show. It is the Tuesday ticket. It is after the dust is now well and truly settled after the disappointing result at the weekend. Obviously, there's been a few other stories, Jonathan. There's been a wee bit of a links with the next Virgil van Dijk. I was saying we can talk about that if you want. And we could talk about other areas you would like to strengthen the Celtic squad. I'm sure we'll have that same conversation many a time as the season goes on. We could talk about whether we can imagine or envisage Scottish football retrospectively, maybe even on a sports scene or on a
Mm.
Sky Sports sort of platform, replicating what we seen on Monday Night Football last night, where we actually got to hear the refs mic'd up, which I thought was pretty insightful. And of course, we've got the Player of the Year awards to discuss as well. Anyway, before we get stuck into all that, we will do all that good stuff. All that good stuff means if you have not subscribed already, there's loads of folk who've subscribed. Join them. It is completely free. And there's a wee subscribe button at the bottom. If you want to give us a wee like, do it now. A share, slag my hair, they're all fair as well. If you want to become a Boise Bus member, like so many of yous have, like Pam, like Alistair Jack, like Ali, like Patrick McLaughlin, so on, so on, so on, then it is $1.99 a month, but it's totally optional. Do not worry about that. The Boise Bus content will always be free. But yes, sometimes if you do want to become a member to keep the wheels on the road, then absolutely you can do that. Rory, say what the intro? Just explained that, big man.
He's late.
You clearly wouldn't have heard the intro, Ronnie, anyway, mate. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously going deep, Jonathan. Anyway, also we have new sponsors, and with that, I think I've got a new logo here. It's even better. AD Pharmacy, look at that. Just go up to your phone, take a wee photo of the QR code, do you know what I mean? That'll be you straight in there. And just remember, you can be, I think the quote there now, Jonathan, that's flying about is be more like Dyson Maeda than Dirk Brichter. Remember, they will not let you down. You can do a Lionel Richie and be up all night long. And remember the one amazing feature with ED Pharmacy, not only are they going to keep you going all night long. So obviously, they are erectile dysfunction treatment tablets, Jonathan. We can't beat around the bush. They're the only blue thing we'll celebrate on this channel. If you are around Central Scotland, though, remember that they offer free same-day delivery service 7 days a week. And for the rest of the UK, they aim for next-day delivery. Order cut-off is 6 p.m. Use promo code BUS10 at the checkout for 10% off. Fantastic. Keep that in mind, guys. Keep that in mind. The weekends can be long if you've not checked in at ED Pharmacy. Piesports.com as well, 12.5% off at the checkout. As always, Bus 1888. Get your fill of doner kebabs, pies, if Steve O'Matt hasn't ordered them all for you. Jonathan, let's do this wee top this week because you were a belter last week. You were the 97-98s. I thought I'd raise the stakes a
I
wee
know. I
bit.
just went for plain black because I didn't go for anything fancy today. I'm with a plain black for a reason because I'm wearing this to symbolise your demise in Sutton Death. I came with a funeral top on because today your
Well, we're
challenge
dressed in
dies.
black. We're dressed in black, mate. We are dressed in black. I like it. Okay, it's that time of the Tuesday ticket where we hand over the mic to the irritating leader of Sutton Death, Mr. Jonathan Boyce. Jonathan!
Well, Russell, have to look back on the last week of Scottish football, and you have to give Mickey Beale some credit in the bank. Well done, Mickey. He managed to win what I am dubbing as the end of the season, the Derby of Insignificance. He managed to come out trumps against an understrength Celtic team and do a mighty good job of it. It's a bit like when you go into your wardrobe, find an old pair of jeans that you haven't had on for years and find that £20 note sticking in the back pocket. Yes, it's an enjoyable moment at the time where you get to find that £20 note, but it is ultimately a fleeting moment as you immediately spend it because you didn't know you had it. And that is exactly what happened at Ibrox at the weekend there. That was a fleeting moment in time for wee Mickey Beale. For Ange Postecoglou, though, he is still out at the casino. He's still out all night long. He hasn't gone home yet like Mickey. He's still got trophies to win. He's at the low-stakes tables like he was at Ibrox, where he could afford to take gambles. He could afford to throw a couple of spare chips Mickey's way. And he's going to be doing the same thing, I hasten to guess, for the next couple of weeks at the low-stakes tables. However, come June the 3rd, Ange Postecoglou returns to the high rollers table. His record there this season has been mightily impressive as he looks to get a full house. And the build-up to the Scottish Cup final is going to be ramped up over the next few weeks.
Love it, Jonathan. Love it. A full house. That is what we want. And yeah, let's get into it then. Saturday came, Saturday gone. And they certainly had a full house, Jonathan, at Ibrox, and undeniably in the comfy surroundings of knowing a game that meant nothing. There's two sides to it. I mean, obviously you're going to be pissed off with the performance and that, and you're going to be annoyed with the team selection at times or who's not up to it. We could talk about areas we think we need to improve as well, by the way. I'm happy to do that. I think it's very important, though, not to get lost in thinking that there's such a thing as a narrative cup. There is a narrative. We talk about it all the time on here, but it doesn't actually mean F all in the cold light of day. Whatever the narrative is the narrative. And luckily we've got a guy in situ right now. He doesn't read the narrative anyway. He's got no interest in it. But if people want to get all carried away about bragging rights, narratives, and momentum shifts and all this nonsense, there is no bigger momentum shift as a team winning 5 of the last 6 trophies, including a treble in the second season. That's an improvement on last year, incidentally. The defeat was the first one since the first time Ange faced Rangers at Ibrox, albeit we did lose an extra time in the Scottish Cup. But I ain't getting lost. I think it's lost in translation. I thought what you seen undeniably was either a subconscious for Celtic that the league's done. It just didn't seem to matter as much for whatever reason. The team lineup tells me it didn't matter as much. That isn't the starting lineup, despite the injuries we had of the players missing, that we begin that game with, if that game had something riding on it. Fact. That is just the way it is. That performance doesn't play out the way it did if there was something riding on it. Again, I can't really say fact at the end of that, but I would like to think not. I'd be very surprised if it did, put it that way. I also think, for whilst we're able to scrutinise Celtic's performance, etc., you've also got to look at how they've elevated their performance to such an extent. I'll give you my take on it, because see when nothing matters, and it's nothing for nothing, Jonathan, they come up trumps time and time again, and they raised their game because there was all pressure on it. They had 50,000 fans in their comfy environment. They had to get a win. They knew we changed quite a lot of players. There was no, if we lose, there's no damning outcome for them. All they had to do was go and play their football with a bit of freedom, impress their manager, loads of virtue signalling pish as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to the crunch, that lot cannot turn it on. When they're under pressure, they do not like it, Jonathan, and I'm afraid when the proof is in the pudding this year, when the heat was turned up, they got out the kitchen. When there was no pressure on, fine, you look good, well done. And do you know what? I think it sums it all up for me. Do you know what I mean? It was like one of those ones where let's not be overcritical of a side that is on the brink of a treble, a side that, when it mattered, got the job done at Hampden against Rangers in the Scottish Cup semi-final, in the League Cup final. They got the draw at Ibrox when they really needed to get that one, salvage that game. We dug it out, scalped them at Celtic Park where again it really mattered because it's the start of a new season. By that point, they were the newly crowned Europa League runners-up, whatever that means. And at this point in time, I just think the game really did mean nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. What you got? Nothing. So let's not get let them get carried away. In fact, nobody cares, mate. It's up to them if they want to get carried away. I'm all for it. Just seen a wee post for Phil there. Tattoo Face handing out the memberships. What a guy! Nice one,
What a guy
Tattoo
indeed.
Face, mate. As always, always so generous on the bus. We do appreciate it. Aye, and Ronnie's right. I mean, they had nothing to lose because they had already lost everything. That's the reality. I don't feel, for me, that it's a game that we need to get over caught up in. Oh, shit, I knew he was rubbish. Oh, maybe we're not as good as we thought. I think just take a step back, remember that human nature plays into these things, think where our mindset is. We are not in that same I really said state of mind there, Jonathan. We're not in that same, you'll probably get us done for copyright and all. But I think in terms of where your mindset is when these games matter, to players being acutely aware, Jonathan, that the job was already done, I think it did play out a wee bit like that, no?
It did. I think it had a lot of an end of season sort of feel to the game, certainly from a Celtic point of view. I think as soon as the team was announced, you could kind of get the feeling that Ange Postecoglou has his eyes on other things, whether people think that's the right thing to be doing or not. I personally thought it was refreshing. I was quite happy to see the changes made, albeit I knew it was going to make the game a lot more difficult, but you're going to have to give players opportunities to test their mettle against Rangers to see if they can cut it. There was a few fringe players in there that were given an opportunity to show if they could cut it in, one of the toughest places they can go, in a hostile atmosphere. Ultimately, the game didn't matter. But for these players, it was an opportunity for them to show their worth on that stage. And that is why Ange Postecoglou went with the team he did. Celtic winning that game wasn't going to make a grand deal of difference to anything. Other than the fact they could have run a record points total. That was the only thing that Celtic had riding on it, which ultimately isn't the most important thing going on at Celtic Football Club at the moment. So I think Postecoglou was right to make some changes and to test and experiment a little bit, albeit it didn't end up working out the way we'd all like. Obviously not happy to have lost the game whatsoever, but at the same time, it wasn't a game that I could look at and think, oh, I was really angry or really frustrated at it because the team have given so much to the cause this season. And in some ways, I think it'll be an interesting one, Russell, because I think, if you're looking back on this, Rangers could well look at this game as a moment where they think they finally cracked Celtic. That's what the media's been trying to portray. Even Bosnia, I thought fucking Eurovision was on Saturday, but it seems like Bosnia were late in with their results on the Scottish football over the weekend on the Daily Record when they're coming out with absolute rubbish about Rangers being the dominant team in Glasgow or some pish like that in the Daily Record. And you're looking at it, and I think with this hyperbole, it actually might help focus Celtic again a little bit.
Hyperbole! Ooh,
I know, hyperbole.
There
Yes.
we go.
I've been Dictionary Corner the last week. Dictionary Corner. But I think with what Rangers have been, what the media have been saying since this result, it's a wee reminder as to what actually happens when Rangers beat Celtic in a game, because we haven't been on the receiving end of a loss to them in over a year before the weekend there. Rangers are now running with the narrative, and the media are running with the narrative that Rangers now have bragging rights through the close season, even though Celtic are about to clean sweep if they beat Inverness on the 3rd of June to win the Scottish Cup. Whereas Celtic, I think, will have learned a lot more about their team because they've now found out players that perhaps are not going to be able to cut it in these games. And ultimately, they've done it at no risk because the league was already won. So they could afford to take that chance. And, I think when you're talking about Ange Postecoglou, I think he gets really wound up by Mickey Beale and Rangers and the media when they start ramping this sort of narrative up. I think that gets his back up, and I think that might just make him want to go into the summer even more determined to put them back in their place next year along with the squad. They'll want to correct this. So I think short term, as I said in the opener, it was a fleeting moment of success for Rangers. Longer term, I think Celtic will actually be the ultimate beneficiaries of that result.
I think it's interesting. I always remember Stephen Tomlinson on the Endless Celts said it was a few months ago, and he said he felt that Beale had somehow managed to get more love bombing from the media in Scotland than what even Gerrard did. And I hadn't thought of it like that. I was like, fuck, that's clever. And I started comparing the two, and I went, honestly, just goes to show you 3 trophies, or on the brink of 3 trophies, right? And certainly the last, what's that Angie's won, a second league title, 2 league cups already, in a Scottish Cup final, semi-final last time. And yet one defeat to Ange will count for the bragging rights for the summer, or the sort of flip of the narrative into some sort of Rangers sort of steam train, some sort of momentum burst. I mean, is that all it takes? Really? One win, and suddenly, everything just shifts. Would that be the same the other way around? Absolutely not.
Well,
Absolutely not.
you've seen it in the 90s. You'll know yourself. Celtic used to get the odd win in the 90s, and I would imagine you could probably confirm the media narrative wasn't,
We won at
Celtic
Hampden.
are back. Celtic are back. That just doesn't happen.
Won at Hampden, I remember 3-0. Van Hooijdonk, Craig Moore, OG, he must have been young then, and Rudy Vara, funnily enough, scored. And honestly, like, there was never at any point like, oh, here we go into the summer. Do you know what I mean? I remember even the year we won the Scottish Cup in 1995, that was never like summer thinking we were the dominant force in Scottish football. And
Do we not call ourselves Scottish Cup champions? No.
Scottish
Should have
Cup,
done.
yes, sounds
Scottish Cup champions.
Yeah. Does that not make sense?
Scottish Cup champions. That's what Rangers called themselves last year.
No, they were calling themselves the Scottish Cup title winners.
Scottish Cup champions, I think it was.
Scottish Cup champions is the term you would use.
Aye. No, they
what
called themselves.
What are you talking about?
You just call yourself Scottish Cup winners. You didn't call yourself champions.
Scottish Cup champions. Would you not? I thought they were saying they were.
No.
They're not saying they were like
No.
Scottish Cup titles or something. I would say Scottish Cup champion. I think it was a title involved. I think that's what it was. Anyway, we digress. Thanks for that interception there, John. That was really worthwhile. But yeah, I just think when it comes to it, when it comes down to it, you just look at it and you go, break this down for me. How, if this was the other way round, in a parallel universe, Celtic won one Glasgow derby this year against all-conquering Mickey Beale side that won 2 trophies out of the possible 2 so far, and we're in the final of the third one. And any way, shape, or form you think the media would spin this and somehow into like Angie's side, get the bragging rights, etc. Just surely not. Surely not. That wouldn't happen, would it?
No, absolutely no chance. Absolutely no chance. And I think when you're looking at it, it's always been the same with the narrative, and that's why I think Ange Postecoglou will be acutely aware of what's going on with the media at the moment. And I think he kind of gave glimpses into it as well in his post-match interview about whether the fact he was learning. And he says, always learning, mate. Always learning, because I think Postecoglou found out a lot more about his team actually in defeat than Mickey Beale has found out about his in victory. Because if we look at it from this point of view, Russell, the next time Celtic play Rangers won't be until August, September time into the new season. By that time, Celtic's team will be quite a bit different from the team that was fielded at Ibrox, the starting 11. Even just with players that will be back in the first team before you even think about summer additions. The Rangers team will be different as well because they need to go again. So if you're telling me that this game has any significance whatsoever in the first game when we play them next season, I think it's just a load of nonsense, because the players are going to be completely different on both sides. I mean, you look at Celtic and, out of their back five, I include the goalkeeper in this, I think it's only going to be Carl Starfelt out of that back five that will start the next time we play Rangers. I think Joe Hart will get replaced in the summer. And I think, obviously, we've got Alistair Johnson who'd come back in at right back. Craig Taylor comes back in left back. Carter Vickers comes back in at centre half, provided there's no other signings. So that's already making you far stronger as a unit from a Celtic point of view. You would have Kyogo up front, again, your best striker, just won Player of the Year as well. So there is so much more improvement in that Celtic team in terms of players. There was definitely an opportunity there, as I said, for the understrength players to show if they could hack it in these games. Unfortunately, for a few of them, there's a lot of question marks there that'll need to be answered. But I think from Celtic's point of view, it was a worthwhile learning curve because I think Ange Postecoglou now knows what he needs to do in the summer, whereas I don't think Mickey Beale will have found it much about that Rangers team because, like I say, he's not yet beaten Celtic when they're at full strength.
Well, exactly. I mean, and again, I think those sort of arguments would be getting pointed to a hell of a lot more if it was the other way around, like I was saying. Let's have a wee nosy into Celtic then. Like you were saying, Ange says he's always learning, which is absolutely fine. We've got no problem with that, Ange. We like that refreshing attitude. And I stand by what you said as well, Jonathan. I think there's undeniably a personal dislike, and I think an itch Ange wants to scratch. And I think whilst we're only fans and we allow guys from the other side of the city to get under our skin easily, I think undeniably Mickey Beale has had a fantastic run at getting under our skin. Just in general, I think he pisses off everyone, and it turns out Ange is not immune to that
No.
disease as well. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think he's definitely had his fill with all this bullshit. And I think come the summer, I think as well he was a wee bit fighting talk the other week. You know, when he was saying, "You're well off the mark, well off the mark." You know, it was quality when he was saying that, and I thought he said that with a wee bit of devilment. I would argue as well. Now he's saying he's always learning. They're almost like wee shots over the bow. And bear in mind, he'll be lifting a trophy again. I would like to think anyway. Come the next few weeks, 3rd of June, and that then is when you start going body of evidence of work, loads of talk, nothing to show for it. You know, and that is the truth. Now, a few killer lines from Ange, hell of a lot of trophies, a hell of a lot of dialogue. In fact, so much spouting of shite, it's unbelievable. Nothing to show for it, and that will be how it ends. Do you know what I mean? Come the end of the summer, that will be the optics, if you like, and the fact that maybe this result could work as a springboard for Celtic to be more proactive. Who knows? I've got a couple of concerns from it. I think it's easy to be ambitious. The Celtic will address areas of the park that we can discuss if you want tonight that you think need improved on. I've got a few things on it though. I think we need to look at transfer windows. So easy to say. For example, Jen started 6 Champions League games. We thought he was okay. I think none of us said he was particularly poor. I think my view on it was Ange clearly had decided he didn't fancy him, and Kobayashi was his boy. But if Kobayashi is his boy, I think we can now look at that being, have we really improved that area? I'm not sure. It's easy to be hoodwinked, Jonathan, into these windows always being amazing when you're winning football matches. And I think sometimes it would be brilliant to look at things with complete balance. Forget what the results are at this moment in time. Just look at it and go, have you improved? I look at O to me should have supplemented Giakoumakis and Kyogo. And the problem, if your problem with it, being able to do that is being unable to give Giakoumakis his free amount of minutes, then I think that is actually, I think that's more on the manager than on the player, if you ask me, because I think his return. See, when put it this way, Kyogo comes out the team, Giakoumakis comes in the team, no problem, mate. Nobody cares. Sound. In fact, you probably would have had me quite often going, horses for courses, suits us better for Giakoumakis to play this fixture.
Yep.
O started and you thought he could have a Dembele impact here and prove us all wrong, because I remember being a wee bit hesitant when Dembele started his first ever Glasgow derby. He scored a perfect hat-trick. Or it could go where you've got question marks. Now, the January window did see Alistair Johnson come in as well, who I am absolutely all on board with. I think he's got a lot to learn still. I think he looks a wee bit raw around the edges, but with quality and a lot of self-belief. But to be leaving him as the only option other than Kyogo, who for whatever reason hasn't been able to start the game at the weekend, that's not right. Recruitment's going to be very important this year, we can't afford to keep trying to make profits, Jonathan, in transfer windows. Is that piggy bank just keep building and building and building? You look at January, it's great to go, oh, he just doesn't care, he just gets rid of players who don't want to be there. Yeah, but you're driving down their value, and yet we still operated to a profit. Giakoumakis was £4 million, and Juranovic was £7.5 million. 11.5 million in, and we spent 3 million on Johnston, 3.5 million on Johnston, something like that.
Yeah.
Could be actually for nothing. And then who was the other one we brought in for money? My mind's got obviously, and was what, 2 million, 2.5. We just need to be realistic here. It's time we look at a window. This window coming up. It's great to go around the positions where you want to strengthen, but don't just bring in a player in that position and go, see what we did, what you wanted, Boyce. No, actually fucking strengthen it. Actually get someone already of a higher level, and you will see the improvements. I think right now it's a shame that there was some question marks over the recruitments, Jonathan, after the weekend.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously the big one that everyone was keen to see how well he would do was going into the fixture. Again, I wasn't overly against it because I wanted to see how he would handle the occasion, and because it was a game which doesn't have a lot riding on it, it made sense for me anyway that he started. He didn't really take his opportunity, although he didn't get an awful lot of service, but there was a moment when we're 1-0 down where he should really score, and he hits the post, and that's a possible game-changing moment if he manages to put that in, and perhaps a massive moment in his Celtic career as well, because it gets him off the mark against them in his first start, gives him that confidence. So, the whole afternoon might have played out slightly differently if that goes in. And you've got to say, if it was his predecessor, Giakoumakis, in that position, he's scoring. I'm sorry, I believe Giakoumakis scores that.
Don't apologise for it, it's a fact.
Yeah, I think Giakoumakis scores that. Again, Kyogo probably scores that as well. If he'd been in the starting 11, but that's your issue there, because what could happen, and it's very feasible, and we've seen it happen before since Kyogo's been in the building, is he is prone to injury. He can end up sitting a lot of games out over the course of a season. If you're then putting all your chips onto O and not going to strengthen that position again, then you could end up finding yourself in these frustrating positions where he's not taking his chances. And then if you're in that sort of situation without another option up front, you're then going to be back into a position where you either have to put, somebody like a Maeda through the middle, or you're having to put an Abada through the middle, like we've seen happen previously, and that isn't the place Celtic should be now. It was a bit more understandable, whilst the rebuild was going on, that we could end up in that position. I think a few times Kyogo and Giakoumakis, for example, were both out at the same time, and you're like, okay, that was a bit unfortunate, and we're just going to have to play the cards we're dealt. But I think it would be a bit of negligence on Celtic's part if they ended up in a similar position again next season, where if O and Kyogo were both out, or if Kyogo's out and O's not on form, that we've got no other natural striker in there to help bridge that gap. Because for me, I think O could become a good player. I still wouldn't write him off quite yet. I think he's a bit raw around the edges. Perhaps his summer training with Postecoglou will improve him going into next season.
But surely we knew that. Surely we knew when he came in he was going to be a wee bit raw around the edges. Now, I don't care. This was the business end of the season. We had a League Cup to win, a Scottish Cup to win, and a league, yes, we had a lead on, but with nothing was signed, sealed, delivered by then. In fact, we had the Rangers side that went on, 13 wins in a row in the league. I mean, there was plenty of jeopardy in front of us as well. We need to be real here. Yeah. And I don't think, for me, leaving it to two strikers is a risk that was firstly necessary. Secondly, one that is a better two than the two we had before. So it's not just the quantity, it's the quality as well. That's why I'm really baffled by that area of the part. And it's not me writing off or anything like that. It's going, that's just that I can tell already. That guy was signed to supplement what you've got and Beddy's way in, not to be the direct competition for our boy Kyogo. They are chalk and cheese. Whereas Giakoumakis, I felt, brought a completely different box of tricks, but was very much as good at what he brought to the table as what Kyogo was, what he brought to the table. One was afforded double the opportunities to show what he could do than the other, which is, of course, Angie's gift, and I get that. But for me, that was highlighted at the weekend anyway. That area from when Kyogo's not there has as went backwards. Right, simple as that. Because he didn't cause them problems when Kyogo wasn't fit for us against them. You kind of thought, you know what's actually fine because quite fancy Giacomakis to occupy Goldson and that. They don't actually like. I actually think they don't like playing against him more. Whereas I think O touched the ball how many times in the weekend? It doesn't matter. It wasn't a lot anyway.
Under 10, I believe it was. I think it was very little. It was very
Wow.
little.
I knew it wasn't a lot, but I didn't know that. And again, this is it, Brown Warrior. Oh, it's still in development. He will come good. No one's disputing that, Brown. Totally with you on that, mate. Would you leave that, though, to be one of your only two strikers? No, you wouldn't. We do agree with what you're saying. We all are in agreement that he can come good. He's not to be one of a two-man option that you've got up top. For me, that's just not enough. Just not enough. And also, by the way, which people will dress over. I can see Steve O mentioned in the comments there about Cho. Cho wasn't. Cho was the first choice striker. O wasn't. We all know that for a fact. Celtic need to get the first choice options this summer as well. That's how I want to see. It was the same that last summer. Vinicius Souza we didn't get. January, Cho. Let's just we refocusing here. That we defeat of the weekend, Jonathan, might do us good in improving certain areas of the park and getting in the guys that are identified first. They're at the top of that list. Go get them. Stop fucking about. And we'll never be in a better position to do so either. Goalkeeper, would you improve there?
Yes. I thought Joe Hart was at fault, unfortunately, for two of the goals. For me, I wouldn't say he's fully at fault on the first one, but he should be doing better. He needs to be tipping it round, and I'll tell you why. I wouldn't say. Yeah, I would say the first one is worse at the two goals, but I would say on the first one, Kobayashi is looking all over the place. It was like when you used to play tennis with Dad, and he would play the chopper, and you would be looking about in the air looking for the ball. That was what Kobayashi was like after Joe Hart fucking pushed that one out. That was what was going on there. It reminded me of little Russell Boyce running about the tennis court trying to find where the fucking tennis ball had gone. And Kobayashi had no fucking clue where it was either. But by the time he'd worked out, it was in the bloody back of the net. But I thought with Joe Hart, he's got to be doing better with that. He has to be tipping that wide, and getting that behind for a corner. I felt that was really slack. And then I think the second one, it just looks like it's really close to him. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I feel he could have done better with that one. As well. I think the difference with Joe Hart is he's quite a steady goalkeeper, which is fine. It's done okay for us for the last couple of years, to be fair. I mean, he's done his job pretty well, and I've been quite happy having him between the six up until about now. But I'm kind of looking at it and thinking he doesn't make very many huge saves. You could probably count them on one hand in games where he's made massive saves. Like, your big goalkeepers that you need to rely on, particularly when you've got Champions League nights. Everyone will always go and remember your likes of your Fraser Fosters or your Artur Boric's, because they produce big saves and big moments in big games. And I just don't feel Joe Hart has really produced that. By the flip side, you can probably argue he's not made too many high-profile errors either. He's a steady goalkeeper, but I mean, if Celtic are serious about progressing, for me, particularly at a European level, then they need to be going out and finding a goalkeeper that's going to be of better quality. Again, you can go back to recruitment previously from Benjamin Siegrist last summer. He's played 2-3 times, played a couple of League Cup games, and then he's been out the team ever since. Never had another look in. So clearly, Ange Postecoglou's seen enough in training to realise Benjamin Siegrist isn't the answer to his goalkeeping conundrum. And again, that just highlights the fact that Celtic probably should have been more ambitious last year in that department, and it's now coming back to bite them as far as I'm concerned, because it's something they're going to need to go at again. And I would like to think that is something Ange Postecoglou will be looking at, because Joe Hart, for me, as much as he's been steady and a good influence on the team, I just feel he's not going to produce that big defining moment in a game where he's going to make a big save that's going to get you points. And that is something you need when you go into Europe. That's something you need when you go to Ibrox at certain times in those games. And as far as I can see, Joe Hart is not capable of providing that moment, I don't think, for us.
It's interesting, my heart. I mean, at the end of the day, we're wanting to evolve. Celtic were in a mess when Joe Hart came in, and he absolutely was fantastic in terms of that assurance that he brings, the maturity, the experience, the influence around the dressing room. In terms of goalkeeper, I think he's had some good moments in the Europa League last year. I think that when you go up a notch, then you're more. If Celtic are evolving, then Celtic are then at the levels of Serie A teams, or they're at levels of like EPL teams. That's what the bar we're trying to measure ourselves against. And he's been found short there the 5 years leading up to his move to Celtic. That's him from 29, 28, 29. He was found short at the level we're striving for then, let alone at 36. We need to be realistic, and this is not a hate. I think too many coaches had decided he wasn't good enough at the top level, Jonathan, for too long for us to think he's going to be the answer for us if we actually are serious about the top level. He's had 2 very good seasons for Celtic. I think, and I stand by this as well, don't get personal with players. I'm just warned you in this. See, the way I see it, I think Celtic's been just as good, if not better, for Joe Hart than what Joe Hart's been for Celtic. There you go. Think on that for a wee while. Not very often you can be third choice at Burnley, third choice at Spurs, and then come up here, play week in, week out, Europa League football, Champions League football again, win league titles again. I think we've got to be fair here and say, there's maybe just another level we could go in the goalkeeping department. The money is there to do so. Again, this is not about bashing Joe Hart. I would like Joe Hart to stay around at the club, to be honest with you. But as a backup, if that was your cup goalie or whatever, John, sound, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever gets you through the night, Joe. ED Pharmacy and cup games, sound. I'm all down with that, mate. But yeah, I mean, of course, that's an area I think we could strengthen. Absolutely. I thought that last summer. It wasn't the most popular opinion, but I thought it then.
Interestingly, never gave Seacrest a chance just before you move on to left back, because that game was. Well, I mean, I think we do kind of know why, but you'd have thought because he gave so many players an opportunity in that game. I know. It goes to show though that was obviously a really poor piece of business last summer.
Seacrest went on that. Seacrest did that photo in Paris. I think it was Paris he was in with a rum in his hand and he's meant to be injured. As soon as I seen that, I was like, I think the narrative at the time was, oh, Seacrest has got a world day of a bird and all that. Oh, great to see the big man enjoying himself. And my first thought, not because I'm a killjoy, by the way, I just thought, the second dance sees that will not be, oh, your bird's a worldie, mate. Nice one. Like, what the fuck is he doing? Do you know what I mean? He's meant to be injured.
But then he'll let him fuck off.
Well, he's barely been in the on the set, Jonathan, since then. He's not even part of the cast now, so I think that's what's happened. I think a lot of folk in the chat are talking about backup goalies like Barkas and that use piece. We're talking about bringing someone in here, not anything else. Save that argument. That's just daft talk. It would definitely be, if we're going to improve on Joe Hart, something from out with Celtic right now, not within. Again, we've got the reserves to do so. And I think as well, not just that, the thing is Joe Hart, father time goes on and stuff, Jonathan, him trying to play rock and roll football with us with the ball at his feet and that ain't happening, right?
It's not with this game anyway.
It was the first observation that Pep made when he took over at Man City, and it was the first real sign that he had the reins at the Etihad. Do you know what I mean? Because Joe Hart was well loved there. But anyway, he won't be there. Left back, Bernabei. He's been linked with a call-up for Argentina, mate. They were saying on the Sunday Blether, it was brilliant. I listened to it both shows yesterday. He gave the ball away apparently 28 times or 100 times he had the possession, something like that, David said. It felt like it was more. And I know that's a lot as it is. It felt like more. What age do they get to before you go, look, maybe we just need to accept that and take what we can get and send them back to maybe where there's clubs that appreciate what he's done before. I don't know. As he improved, again, I look back at last summer, when he signed for nearly £4 million, he is one of Angie's most expensive transfer fees to date still. Has he improved our first team? That's what I'm looking for, Jonathan Mid. If Angie's going to be buying players in around the top 5 fees he spent since he took over, I think they should be first team. That to me just doesn't look like that type of investment. Greg Taylor has stepped up and became a far better player than I thought he could, that the punk duck warlord ever thought he could. But what we'll say is he really, Greg Taylor, is that what you're thinking for the Champions League? Again, depends on your ambition. If you do think he's Champions League quality, sound. It's your gift to do so. I know what world I live in. I know what I'm watching. I would have liked the left back who came in for £4 million, or just shy of £4 million last summer, to be one hell of, one hell of a damn sight better than what I've seen from Burnaby so far. Notwithstanding that, I appreciate the culture. Coming from Argentina to Scotland is not a path that has been trodden often, and it can be difficult. I know he's had off-field issues, not some positive, some negative, by the way. Becoming a father and stuff like that's a real learning curve, I'm sure. But notwithstanding that, we can only judge what we see in the park. That's all we're here to do. He's not been good enough.
No, he's certainly not. I don't think he probably didn't win anyone over when he first came in with the antics off the field, and then his performances on the pitch have probably left quite a bit to be desired, given the outlay that Celtic have put on him. We'd have been expecting more for the money we've paid. And it goes back to the argument that we're just, having, with Owen Kyogo. If Greg Taylor gets injured, and by the way, he looks like he's had a few knocks this season and could end up, picking up a sort of layoff. Then you could end up in a position where Burnaby is forced upon you to be played for, 4, 5, 6 games. And, if that was to happen next season and Celtic didn't strengthen at left back, if you're saying Greg Taylor would be a concern possibly for some, certainly the Punk Dog Warlord, for example, would find Taylor concerning to be playing in Champions League level football, and there'll be many others of the same opinion, then you're going to end up thinking, fucking hell, we've got Burnaby playing here at left back against, like a Real Madrid or a Manchester City or whoever it may be. And that would just have the shouters up you before the game even began, to be perfectly honest. Again, Rangers is always a good opportunity for players, to find out where we're at with them. And that's why it was a good opportunity to put Burnaby in my opinion, as well, just to see how he handled it. Unfortunately, he didn't handle it well. It's another occasion where if you were looking at that and that game of being of significance and Celtic were forced to play Burnaby at left back, you would have been worried going into a game like that next season if that happens. So I think Postecoglou needs to look at that, because what he wants really, and what he has done very well in a lot of areas of the pitch, is have strong competition between his first choice and his second choice, in the sense that you could almost make an argument for both players being just as good. He's had that, in the past with Kyogo and Giakoumakis. I think at right back, the fact that Alistair Johnson's dropped out and Tony Ralston's came in, whilst Ralston's probably not quite as good, he's certainly not as big a drop-off in quality for me as the left back situation is. He's got plenty of good options on the wing. He's got plenty of good options in the middle of the park that he can rotate around. But I think when you're looking at it, I think striker is certainly what he needs. I think left back is absolutely something he's going to need to address again, because I just think Burnaby is not looking like he's going to cut it. And again, if he is going to cut it, it could be another one of these situations like Greg Taylor, where it takes, a number of years before he really gets up to speed with it all. And that is not time, unfortunately, that Celtic have, when they're going into Champions League group stage football again next season. And I think is after this year, they have to play qualifiers again. So you could find that, next season, if we, are lucky enough again to win the league, then, we're going to have to go through qualifiers. And you don't want to end up, if you're in that position, without strengthening your team properly and doing the basics correct. And for me, Burnaby is looking like he's a project that isn't going to work out for me. And I think it is going to need to be a position that gets addressed. Whether Celtic will want to or not, because they spent that $4 million and they want to give that more time, that will all be answered in the summer. I feel like Celtic in the past might have tried to hold on and hope he came good. I would like to think now given what Ange Postecoglou's done for the club, because I think when he's talking about learning about his team at the weekend, Burnaby is one of those players he learned a lot about on Saturday. So I think that is going to be a position Postecoglou will have earmarked, and we'll see if the board are willing to accept, okay, we didn't invest that money wisely, let's go again and try and find a better left back.
Centre back Jonathan, I was going to pronounce his name, but you know what I'm like with these things. Mbomayang or something like that, you know what I mean? He was linked, well, yeah, something like that. He was linked with Celtic in 2019. There was a brilliant spin in one of the Celtic blogs. I'll not name them because I like just slagging the wee fella every now and then. I don't want to slag Celtic blogs and all that, you know. But there was one of them was saying, you know, he joined Jonathan Barcelona instead of Celtic, right, in a nutshell. And they were saying, and they tried to put like a spin on it, going, Celtic at the time had just signed Christopher Julian for £7 million. That may have deterred him from a move to Glasgow. I'm like, fucking hell, that's some spin, like. No, I go to Barcelona because Celtic are saying Julian for £7 million. Ah, well, bring on PK and that. I'll just go there instead. Shut up.
Oh, dear.
You'll find it in one of the Celtic blogs. And I don't mean this Celtic blog, it's actually not that one. It's one of the blogs that are on the Celtic sites. But yeah, I dare say why this young man heralded as the new Virgil van Dijk didn't join Celtic in 2019 to go to Barcelona was not anything to do with us signing a certain Christopher Julian for £7 million. But anyway, he was 2 years there, and then during COVID or something like that, or a year there, and then during COVID he joined Chelsea for a couple of years. He was in their academy, and then he's now at Volendam, I believe, in Holland. Played every game bar one, and he's been getting rave reviews. I mean, Scott Howe was in the chat earlier. I love Scott, great lad. And but he was saying, he's apparently really good, but he's also been linked with Ajax. So, and I can tell the tone of Scott is Ajax have been linked with him. That's it, done. Why? This is where we now get to the nitty gritty of whether Mr. Lawwell is back in situ, pulling strings and keeping us with a glass ceiling, or we go, what the fuck do you want to sign for Ajax for? Come join us. Do you know what I mean? If there was rumours, this is obviously all very hypothetical right now. Do you know what I mean? But if that is the guy they've identified, go get him.
Yep.
Go get him. Stop fucking about. It's about time Celtic sort of put the big boys' pants on again and stop worrying about, but what can they do? And what can they do? And what can they offer? Start thinking about what we can do. What we can offer. Go in there with the courage of your convictions and get stuck in about it. Do you know what I mean? And make them a proper offer. Not an offer that you would offer someone signing for the Championship in England or something. Do you know what I mean? Get stuck in. And if that's the guy, let's just say, for example, and we don't know, I mean, it's just a few rumours just now. But if that's the guy, right, that's Celtic or Ange has identified at 21 that could come in and improve our centre-half options or certainly give real competition to Starfelt, and like, Kobayashi is a mile away for Starfelt and CCV, particularly CCV.
Yeah.
But Starfelt as well, to be fair. And he can come in and he can really be the 21-year-old to go, do not get injured, do not get suspended, because he'll take your jersey and you won't get it back. That's what I'm looking for. That costs X amount of million, and it might cost a few, extra tens of thousands a week. Go just pay it. Stop messing about this time. I just don't get why we seem to wrap ourselves in this cotton wool of going, well, it's not our fault we can't get anyone. Whose fault is it then? Whose fault is it? Let's get real here. But I was quite excited by that link, and I don't want to worry too much about other clubs being interested. If Celtic's interest is concrete, go get them.
Yeah, I think it can be summed up quite easily, and an old slogan we used to do on here. It seems to be a case that when Celtic are faced with competition from another club, they back down instead of doubling down on them. So it's one of those ones when you're looking at this centre half that we've got a possibility of signing. I believe he's quite different from what Postecoglou already has. He's 6'5". He's a bit of a powerhouse at the back by the looks of things. that he could make, quite the impact for Celtic if we were to go ahead and, pull the trigger on him. But, the interesting point, I think, when it looks from a Celtic point of view, is that as soon as we end up having other clubs interested, we have to then, get into a bit more of a bidding war. Celtic don't notoriously like bidding wars. They don't like having to pay more than they think a player is necessarily worth. And as soon as there is interest from other clubs, then that is naturally going to rocket up the value of the player in question, whether it be this boy or anybody else we're looking at in the summer. And the bottom line is, whether we're looking, seriously at signing this guy or not, there's going to be players that Postecoglou identifies this summer that are going to have other suitors, or there certainly should be anyway. Yes. It would be concerning. It would be concerning if there wasn't, and Celtic were just looking for players that nobody else was interested in buying. When you're looking at another go at the Champions League again next season, you've got to be looking at players that other clubs, of a similar level are inevitably going to be looking at, because that would imply there is quality there. And I'm not saying Postecoglou might not pull another gem out of the J League, but at the same time, he is going to be looking for players that ultimately the likes of clubs like Ajax or whoever it may be will also be interested in. And as I say, Celtic have a tendency to back down rather than double down when it comes to those situations and they find themselves in a bidding war. I would like to think it would be different this time around, and they have learnt their lessons from previous seasons. I think they have to keep iron sweet. I would like to think that this will happen this time around, that if there is indeed interest in a player, Celtic will push the boat out and do everything they can. And, if they still end up choosing Ajax or whoever it is, fair enough. At least you've given it your best crack. You can't say we just gave up on it because another club was interested. An alternative, you just never know, because Celtic are a club in their own rights that have a lot of selling potential, and I think that is sometimes what the club lets itself down as they don't sell itself as well as they could do, and hopefully that should be addressed again with the lure of Champions League football next season.
You nailed it, mate. I've got my wand in hand, and not that wand for those listening. It's a pen I'm referring to. Jesus Christ! I was chucked off the air. That ED Pharmacies went to my head already. Only took 2 the night. There he comes.
All right, guys.
Here he comes. Evening, Phil.
All right, how you doing, boys? How you doing?
Very well, Phil. Very well. How are you?
Still the reason a lot of people are watching tonight, I think.
Great, I'm excited. I'm really, really excited for this one. Nervous, actually. I'm nervous for both of you because this is a tense one tonight. This is the first of. It could go the distance. Well, we'll find out soon enough. But yes, tonight, Sutton Death time. Jonathan, you're in a position that nobody's been in yet. This could be the last meaningful game, shall we say?
You could say.
Or it could go the distance, but yes, that is what we're about to play now. So you may not know this, but there's a wee poll as well tonight in the chat. I don't think you can see it through StreamYard. 51% say Jono, 49% say Russell. So I've been keeping an eye on it. Only a few minutes ago, it was 50-50. So it's very close. It's a bit like the battle you've had so far this season. It's been back and forth, but it's that time. So I will get all of the aesthetics ready, and we will get going in a matter of moments, guys.
Oh, very exciting. And I know Russell will now be channeling his inner Todd Cantwell, even more so after the weekend where Todd put in a very good performance against Celtic. Now Russell's going to try and emulate that tonight. So I'm looking forward to see what he's got up his sleeve.
Todd did win a dead rubber at the weekend. To be fair,
he did. That's why I think you're just basing it off that. Yes, I think so.
The pressure's meant to be on, but I write the scripts.
You write the scripts. Well, we're about to find out if you do indeed write the scripts or not, because I have a feeling it is about to be curtains for Russell Boyce and Sutton Death this season.
Get beat. No way.
It's exciting. So exciting. Here we go, folks. So, Jonathan, the same question I ask every week. First or second for you?
I will continue with my tradition of going first, please, Phil. If he's going to beat me, he's going to have to do it the hard way.
Okay, here we go. Tonight's question has 18 answers. So the question is that recently we saw Celtic go to Tynecastle and win the Scottish Premiership. It meant that things came a bit full circle for Ange because, of course, he lost at Tynecastle in his first SPFL game in charge of Celtic. So tonight's question is, can you name any of the 18 players that were in that squad the night we lost at Tynecastle in Ange's first Scottish Premier League game? 11 players started and there were 7 on the bench. So yeah, 18. And so any player from that match day squad from way back in July 2021, Ange's first SPL game.
Oh wow, it'll be quite a different team, I would have thought. I will start us off with Callum McGregor.
Yeah, Callum McGregor is a correct answer.
Came on as a sub Kyogo.
Oh,
He did, yeah. Flew in that morning, I believe.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Mental. I'll say another one, James Forrest.
James Forrest did play that night, yes, he did. Oh, he was in the squad.
Another debutant, I think, Carl Starfelt.
Yeah, that was. Didn't have the best of starts that night, and many people made their mind up after one game.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm going to take another one that I think came in fairly early that window. Leo Abada.
Abada did play. Had a goal wrongfully disallowed that night.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Welsh.
Stephen Welsh was one of the substitutes. Yes, he was in the matchday squad.
Stephen Welsh as well. That was annoying. That was my next go-to, Stephen Welsh. I'm going to go for the goalkeeper, which I think wasn't Joe Hart. I think it was actually Scott Bain.
Was, yep. Scott Bain is the correct answer, yep.
Shit. Adam Montgomery.
Oh, that's good.
Correct. Adam Montgomery was on the bench. It is 4 each after 4 shots. So, Jonathan, put the pressure
I'm going to
on.
go with the goal scorer that day, Tony Ralston.
No, he was the goal scorer. So you pretty much answered that one, but
Yeah.
yes, he did score the goal. So I would say that confirms he was in the team.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm in trouble.
Oh.
I'd been bad if I didn't get Tony Ralston.
That was Angie's first game.
Angie's first PFL game, yep. July 2021.
I'm going to say Odson Edward.
Correct. Odson Edwards was in the team that night. Yes, he was. So 5 apiece. We've got a potential 5 more, and if not, we'll have a tiebreaker question. If you're still tied after these guesses, are we going to get a winner here in Sutton Death?
I'm going to say another one that left the building and hopefully he played, Ryan Christie.
Ryan Christie was one of the subs that night. He was in the matchday squad. Yep.
Giving one away, wasn't it? I was giving one away by getting that one. He hadn't thought of either. I gave him it. So I've got to just go out on a limb. And I don't think it's right. Sorrow.
You're correct. As merely sorrow keeps you in it. There was no sorrow in that answer, mate. You are correct. You're still in the battle, Russell.
Oh, no, I'm in trouble.
Now there are
I'm in trouble.
3. There are 6 answers left in the pool.
There's a lot of players that have signed that summer. What is? Oh dear.
Here it goes. Take half an hour.
I would just like to think, Russell. You're allowed time to think. It's a perfectly legitimate thing to do in these situations.
Then you're playing for 10 minutes.
What's that? I think I'm done. I'm going to say one, but I think he signed after. I'm going to say James McCarthy.
James McCarthy is an incorrect answer. Russell, you're in a chance to get that point back.
He could hit the post here, though. I've got one. Tommy Rogic.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Tom Rogic went for that, and I can tell you that Mr. Rogic is a correct answer, Russell. You got yourself back into it. So there you go, Tom Rogic.
Tough, Jono gets going.
There we go.
We're level, and he's back in the lead.
Level.
50.
I'm ahead.
Oh, that's
ahead.
mate. I get to start. I get to kick off next week, so it's fine. I've won this. It's back.
So
the
there are
momentum shift. The narrative cup. Lift it aloft, Russell Boyce. Get in there.
so that means to score 16-15.
Look at his face.
Two more points. So there's 2 more weeks of this. So,
Disgusting.
And, the answers that you didn't get from this one were Neil Beaton, of course.
Oh yeah, Beaton.
Greg Taylor.
How did we miss Greg Taylor?
David Turnbull. Albion Ajeti. And the sub-goalkeeper was Vasilius Barkas that night.
I was trying to remember the sub-keeper, but I couldn't even remember who it was.
Yeah,
so it's game on again in the battle, 16-15 with 2 to go.
Penalty next week as well. It's the ramp it right back up.
The invisible force, momentum.
No, it's coming.
It's all just about keeping things interesting, Russell. Got to keep the narrative interesting. There's nothing else.
Jonathan,
there's nothing else to play for this season, so I had to give you one. Eventually. It was about nine in a row, I think it was.
Your face told its own story there for the last 3 minutes before you've started spouting that shit. He's a man in choppy waters. He knows his day of destiny is coming. Boise boy, first penalty next week. Ramp up the pressure. He'll not stand a chance. Get in there.
Oh, it's all right. I'll be fine. I'm still a
Wouldn't it be nice to get on with me, brother? Come on. Anyway, cheers for coming on, Phil. Cheers for everyone the Tuesday ticket. I'm going to celebrate Sutton Death. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. Good night.